Korean War 1950 to 1953, defeat of Chinese North Korean invasion of South Korea. Laotian Civil War 1959 to 1975, leading to establishment of Laos People's Democratic Republic. Vietnam War 1955 to 1975, resulting in withdrawal of American forces from Indochina. Dissolution of the Republic of Vietnam and communist government coup in Vietnam, Laos and Cambodia. Communist insurgency in Thailand 1965 to 1983, leading to communist insurgency decline and eventual end in 1983. Cambodian Civil War 1967 to 1975, decimation of the Kingdom of Cambodia.
You must be wondering why we are talking about these wars that have no consequence or relevance to our current affairs. A war is primarily fought between two enemies, either one-on-one or with allies. All these wars were fought between US and China directly or indirectly against each other in the past, with US gaining victory in almost all wars except the Vietnam War, which vitiates American supremacy till date. Well, the point is China has always been on the receiving end while fighting against Western forces, especially against US.
A turning point came in the 1990s when the CCP witnessed two demonstrations of US military power in its hemisphere, the Gulf War and the Taiwan Strait crisis. Struck by the sophistication of US forces, Chinese leaders acknowledged that it lacked the technology to wage a modern war and prevent foreign powers from intervening in the region. Officials launched an effort to catch up to top-tier militaries by increasing defense spending, investing in new weapons to enhance anti-access area denial capabilities, and establishing programs to boost the Chinese defense industry.
Another shift began in 2012 when President Xi Jinping came to power, championing what he calls the Chinese dream, a vision to restore China's great power status. Xi has gone further to push military reforms than his predecessors. Xi leads the Central Military Commission, the PLA's highest decision-making body, and he has committed to producing a world-class force that can dominate the Asia-Pacific and fight and win global wars by 2049.
This paradigm shift in thinking and commitment towards upgrading its military is directly attributed towards learning enemy's position, capabilities, and war readiness, which is the highlight of our next war concept, tactical disposition.
One who seeks to conquer by sheer strength, clever though he may be at winning pitched battles, is also liable on occasion to be vanquished. Whereas he who can look into the future and discern conditions that are not yet manifest will never make a blunder and therefore invariably win.
Xi has focused on making big structural changes. Among his most significant reforms are new joint theater commands, deep personnel cuts, and improvements to military-civilian collaboration. He is pushing to transform the PLA from a largely territorial force into a major maritime power.
China is broadly classified into 5 military regions and 5 military units, which apparently does not translate to the 5-star on its flag. For any country to gain supremacy over China, it is very important to decipher the tactical conditions of China's regions and its military prowess. As with any communist country, the power is heavily concentrated at the top. In Chinese brass, if the Central Military Commission is shaken, then the entire setup will disintegrate.
Central Command is responsible for providing security to CCP leadership and providing support to other theaters. Northern Command controls the Korean Peninsula and patrols the borders with Russia, Mongolia and Yellow Sea. Western Command, possibly the largest territorial forces, polices the borders with India and precludes counter-terrorism. Eastern Command Forces monitors Taiwan, East China Sea and the Senkaku, Diaoyu Islands and Japan. Southern Command accentuates its presence in South China Sea and borders with Southeast Asian countries.
Army reforms have focused on streamlining its top-heavy command structure, creating smaller, more agile units and empowering lower-level commanders. The army is also upgrading its weapons. Its lightweight Type 15 tank, for example, came into service in 2018 and allows for engagement in high-altitude areas such as Tibet.
Chinese Western Command, which is accountable for all border disputes with India, is heavily equipped with Type 15 tanks. They were using the Type 62 tank, which had about 500 horsepower and an 85 mm main gun. but the new Type 15 has much better protection capability and maneuverability, with an engine capable of 1000 horsepower weighing about 32 to 35 tons. That compares to the Type 99, which weighs 54 to 58 tons, and the Type 96 at 42.8 tons.
The Navy has expanded at an impressive rate to become the world's largest naval force in terms of ship numbers. In 2016, it commissioned 18 ships, while the US Navy commissioned 5. The PLA's ship quality has also improved. RAND Corporation, an American non-profit global policy think tank that offers research and analysis to the United States Armed Forces, found that more than 70% of the Chinese fleet could be considered modern in 2016.
Experts say the Navy, which has an estimated 250,000 active service members, has become the dominant force in China's near seas and is conducting more operations at greater distances. Its modernization priorities include commissioning more nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers. China has 2 aircraft carriers compared to the United States' 11. A third carrier, which is being built domestically, is expected to be operational by 2022.
The Air Force has also grown with 395,000 active service members in 2018. It has acquired advanced equipment, some thought to be copied from stolen US designs, including airborne warning and control systems, bombers, and unmanned aerial vehicles. The Air Force also has a collection of stealth aircraft, including J-20 fighters. In 2015, RAND Corporation estimated that half of China's fighters and fighter bombers were modern. PLA has deployed its J-16 and J-20's multi-role fighter jets to the dual-use military and civilian airport at Garigunza in Tibet. These fighter jets are more advanced than India's Su-30 MKI fighters.
Responsible for maintaining China's conventional and nuclear missiles, the Rocket Forces was elevated to an independent service during reforms in 2015. It has around 120,000 active troops. China has steadily increased its nuclear arsenal. It had an estimated 290 warheads in 2019 and modernized its capabilities, including the development of anti-ship ballistic missiles that could target US warships in the Western Pacific as part of its A280 strategy. China reportedly has the most mid-range ballistic and cruise missiles, weapons that until recently the United States and Russia were prohibited from producing.
The PLA is also developing hypersonic missiles, which can travel many times faster than the speed of sound and are therefore more difficult for adversaries to defend against. While Russia is the only country with a deployed hypersonic weapon, China's medium-range DF-17 missile is expected to be operational in 2020. The Pentagon has said it will likely to be several years before the United States has one.
Established during the 2015 reforms, the Strategic Support Forces manages the PLA's electronic warfare, cyber warfare, and psychological operations, among other high-tech missions. With an estimated 145,000 service members, it is also responsible for the military space operations, including those with satellites. Mekong River dams, 5G, deployment of AI, and cyber attacks are few of the initiatives supported by these forces. We will provide an in-depth analysis on this in our episode on variation in tactics. Let's get you the perspective of Chinese air and missile defense systems and how they are changing the game of modern warfare. A clue that India needs to desperately adopt if they were to challenge China and Russia soon.
A280 is an attempt to deny an adversary's freedom of movement on the battlefield. Anti-access of enemy military movement into an area of operations utilizes attack aircraft, warships, and specialized ballistic and cruise missiles designed to strike key targets.
Area denial of enemies' freedom of action in areas under friendly control, employs more defensive means such as air and sea defense systems. Because modern military technology is required to uphold A280, it is almost exclusively practiced by advanced regional powers such as Russia and China.
Recently, these powers have employed A280 in disputed regions like Crimea and the South China Sea to disrupt freedom of navigation for the United States and the international community.
Russia and China's use of A280 directly opposes the local and regional interests of the US and its allies, leaving US vulnerable when operating in these disputed regions.
Recently, China has emerged as an assertive regional power in the Asia-Pacific with forceful A-to-AD capabilities, using advanced ballistic and cruise missile in conjunction with air and maritime defense systems to deter US military operations in the region. China's A-to-AD is concentrated around Taiwan and the South China Sea, putting US military forces such as Carrier Strike Group and installations in the region within range of precision-guided cruise and ballistic missiles.
This regional A-to-AD threat also severely mitigates the ability of US forces to conduct operations in the Asia-Pacific. For anti-Axis, China relies on advanced land attack ballistic and cruise missiles to threaten US military facilities on the islands of Okinawa and Guam. Also employed are anti-ship cruise and ballistic missiles variants, which using advanced re-entry vehicle technology have the capability to strike with precision and bypass most sea-based missile defense platforms.
China's anti-ship missiles are fielded by warships, submarines and aircraft that patrol the waters along the country's coastline.
Other advanced anti-ship cruise missiles in the Chinese arsenal are the YJ-12 and YJ-18 supersonic missiles with ranges close to 500 kilometers. China's land attack cruise missiles are air and ground launched, with ground launch variants have a range exceeding 1,500 kilometers.
China relies on fighter aircraft and an intricate network of air and missile defense platforms for area denial, employing defensive systems produced indigenously as well as Russian-built AS-300s.
These defense systems and fighter aircrafts are employed to deny US air power and the use of cruise missiles in the region. China continues to improve its area denial capabilities, and reports speculate that the country plans to acquire improved S-400 air defense systems from Russia for deployment in the region.
Anti-satellite weapons are also believed to be employed by China to maintain A-to-AD in the Asia-Pacific and would be used to disrupt or even completely deny US satellite communications and GPS capability. What good are all these modern weapons if they don't know how to use them?
Chinese military's main challenge is personnel, in that it has struggled to recruit, train and retain a professional fighting force. The skills are the most difficult things to teach and teach quickly, and with the Chinese military, the scale is enormous.
Part of this stems from a lack of experience. The PLA hasn't fought a major military conflict in the 40 years since it invaded Vietnam. Additionally, some experts have found that recent reforms have increased the pressure and stress on service members.
Another challenge has been corruption and what Chinese leaders perceive as weakening loyalty to the CCP. During Xi's first 6 years in office, as part of a wider anti-corruption campaign, he oversaw the punishment of more than 13,000 PLA officers, including 100 generals, for giving and accepting bribes, according to the US Department of Defense.
US military strategy and planning is beginning to recognize the threat posed by China's A-to-AD capabilities, and new risks are being considered when planning operations in the Asia-Pacific region. The 2010 Quadrennial Defense Review states that US military forces need to be able to maintain power projection in anti-Axis regions to deter, defend against, and defeat aggression by potentially hostile nation states.
Initial US efforts to counter China's A-to-AD have emphasized enhanced joint force cooperation in contested regions, as well as improved and more cost-effective air and missile defense technologies for regional and theater defenses.
In 2013, the United States deployed a terminal high-altitude area defense battery to Guam to protect military assets stationed there. Around the same time, the United States permanently deployed Patriot PAC-3 batteries to its military base in Okinawa, Japan. Additional protection against the Chinese missile threat comes from sea-based defensive platforms.
Currently, the United States has 17 Aegis BMD capable vessels equipped with SM-3 interceptors deployed in the Pacific for defense against ballistic missiles. Cruise missile defenses for US maritime forces is provided by Aegis vessels equipped with SM-2, SM-6 and ESSM interceptors.
While effective for layered missile defense, these sea-based platforms are not designed or equipped to defeat large missile salvos. Consequently, China could oversaturate these missile defense systems with relative ease by attacking with large numbers of anti-ship ballistic and cruise missiles.
To counter missile salvos, new technology is being researched and tested. Particularly promising options are directed energy systems, electromagnetic railguns, electronic countermeasures, and cost-effective kinetic interceptors.
India cannot afford to buy defensive equipment from Russia, which also supplies the technology to China. With indigenous research centers and increased spending on defense expenditure, India in collaboration with Israel and USA could be a pioneer in cost-effective directed energy system.
A strategic defense alliance with US and an investment from companies like Lockheed Martin could bring advanced technologies to India, which could make India as a hub for defense equipment manufacturing in the 21st century.